Okay, welcome to another Rouse's Rambling Workflow afternoon. You'll hear the sound in the background, no doubt, of the lawn being cut. I have an operative down doing that, which is marvellous. So I have hay fever and can't do it. Anyway, I digress. What I'm going to do is walk you through the processing of this tiger shot from start to finish. I'm not going to do an in-depth Photoshop tutorial, just show you what I do, because I know a lot of you like that. And show you some of the mistakes I made and how I correct them. So this is the lovely Nor and one of her cubs, and because it was shot in an extreme hurry, I didn't compose it correctly. It's kind of in the middle of the frame, and I had the white balance set on shade because I was doing something else into the sun on the other side. One of the cubs was in a tree and I was taking a silhouette against the sunsets. That's why I set shade. So the first thing to do is to look at white balances. So we're going up here to the right hand side in this is Digital Photo Professional, the Canon RAW converter, which in my opinion produces by far the best results. So let's look at auto ambience now. That's a bit cold. White priority is even colder. Daylight white balance, it's warmer, but I'm not quite sure that's the color that it was. So I'm going to click on the little tab there, the little dropper, and I'm going to select my own white balance by literally you can go around the screen and pick bits of grey and alternate bits of colour, and you should get a decent white balance, and you can see that it's changing. I'll just pick some really weird bits for you. Actually, that's quite nice, and what you're meant to do is to pick a neutral colour, so a grey or a bit of bark or something like that. See, that's kind of more of a daylight colour. I don't like that. That's got a cast. That's much nicer. Do you see that? It's a very soft, subtle effect, so I like that, so I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to just change the sharpness, the output sharpness, to the default rather than unsharp mask. Anything else I need to do? Well, I'm looking at the white areas there and looking at histogram there. Doesn't seem to be any great need to do anything more on the raw process side, so I'll probably just leave it as it is, and I will now load it into Photoshop. And because it's DPP, it takes 4.5 years, so you can kind of sing amongst yourselves, or I might sing for you. First I was afraid, I was petrified, not thinking... just getting into it there, and anyway, I get digressed by Photoshop. Here we are, so it's loaded into Photoshop, and no, I'm not a Lightroom guy, so you can work it out to do this in Lightroom. I don't use it, never will, and I sound more like a market trader every day. 2 sausages for £1, love. Yeah, drugs do this. Right, so first things first, the colour's all right on the picture. I always like to look at a picture and think what needs doing when we start. Well, first of all, we need to crop it and have a bit better composition. We need to make it stand out like. We probably need to improve some of the shadow detail and bring out some of the tigers and put some general colour on the scene, but not too much. So let's do the cropping first. Up here to the left, the crop tool. Now, this is a 1DX2. If there was a 5D4, I wouldn't want to re-expand it because it would be a big file. Because it's the 1DX2, when I crop it, it's going to need re-expanding back to 50 megabytes. There's no point cropping an image, so you've only got a few pixels to play with and post it on the internet and say you got close to it. You didn't. So basically I want to bring it back to the original size it was. So if I choose the front image option, you can see there it's put in the dimensions of the file, and when I crop it now to however I want it, it will re-expand it using bicubic smoother, which is one of the Photoshop lovely bits it does, back to the original size. Now I'm looking at the composition there, and I'm looking at that tree maybe on the right hand side to hold that right hand side in a bit. Because the tigers there are looking to the left of the frame, I need them slightly on the right of the center line so that they look into the picture. There might be a bit more argument for going slightly more left like that. Let's have a go. Let's press enter. How's that? Too much? I think that's too much on the right hand side. So what we'll do, again, we'll take a crop down like that. Let's see if that moves it across. Bit better. Yeah, a bit better, and I think we could probably do a little bit more. So let's just do a little bit more. Better? Yeah, I think that'll do, actually. I think that's quite a nice crop, the way we've got it there. I think it's kind of a nice composition with the towel holding it in on the left-hand side. So, first things first, I know how to do about 15 things in Photoshop, and I do all of them consistently. I don't know any of the new techniques. I'm 60s Photoshop guy, which is why I run 60s Photoshop courses. So let's create a copy of what I'm going to do by creating a layer. And by the way, if you don't understand layers, the lovely John Adams, who's a lovely man at the conference, is going to show you Photoshop layers beyond belief. You will learn everything you need to know about Photoshop layers. I unfortunately cannot be there, as one of us has to get the barbecue ready for your hungry hounds that are coming round to the old mansion. Right, so I've basically created a backup of the layer, and on the bottom layer now I'm going to apply my changes, and what changes I want I'm going to paint through onto the top. So let's just have a look at changes. I'm going to use a shadow highlight filter. I'm going to do it because I want to balance the highlights and the shadows in this picture. So a tiny little bit of shadow and a tiny little bit of highlight. There you go. That's quite a nice effect of balancing it there. I quite like that, what it's done. If you don't like the colour, if you think it's put too much colour in, there's a colour slider back here, and you can whack all the colour off that it's put on, or make it look toxic like you've done there. But I'll probably just take that colour down. Yeah, so 0 is where it was. I might just take it down just a little bit, because again, I don't want to put too much of a cast on it. It's all just a question of balance. That's a good phrase. I should use that in my political career. So if we look at before and after. Before, see, it's quite harsh in the shadows and everything else, and after, it's a much softer, nicer, more pleasant, lovely to look at image. So let's drag the original one in the bin, and if you're not following this, you can come on one of my highly priced workshops in the Bahamas on Photoshop. Very nice. I fly first class and you don't. But anyway, that's the way it is. So what else are we going to do? Well, I could do 500,000 other things to this, or I could make it easy for myself and let some geeky people from the United States help me by using a plugin. And again, I'll create my backup layer at the bottom, and I'm going to use a fantastic plugin by a company called Topaz, who are absolutely amazing. It's called Clarity, and it basically is there to make the images jump and pop from the screen, which is the main problem we all have when we post up small images onto the internet. They don't jump out of the screen at people and make them go, oh, that's lovely, I like that. So they don't kind of talk in that voice, but they don't do that either. In case you think this is completely mad, you'd be right. But there you go. It's come up on the screen with a very, very nice... now, if I hold the... There you go. If I hold the spacebar down, you can see before, after. See the detail it's filled in the tiger? Yeah, it's filled in detail in the background. Don't worry about that. We'll get rid of that. But it's actually filled some nice detail in. Now, it's got presets. I'm not going to worry about having to do sliders and that. Someone else has done this before. So let's look at a preset. Okay, that's the colour and contrast boost one. Oh, my God. Look at the toxic colour. Sometimes it's useful, but I think that's too much toxic colour. This is landscape pop, so it's the same but without the colour. There you go, that's quite nice. And then if you come down, you'll see the little window coming up. It will show a sunny day. That's probably quite nice as well. Let's have a look at that. That's done a nice effect, actually. That's popped it right out of the screen. If I did want to change the colour, you can pretend that you know what you're doing by going over to all of these sliders here on the right-hand side. But I could choose the saturation, the global one, and just knock the overall down by... Oh my God, that's the hue. Hold on, let's knock that back. It's live. You can see this is live. Click on the saturation one and knock it back just a bit, minus maybe, and it will just take some of the saturation out. So it looks more natural, and I think that's really nice. So let's load that in. See, I could have done that myself. It would have taken me probably 10 minutes to do that same thing. Why not, you know, buy a piece of software for 50 quid that somebody else has done all the hard work for you? The trick is knowing how to apply it and what to use. And I think the trick is also knowing that these people have no idea about colour. So, before, after. Before, after. It's a much nicer, punchier image, but you might say to me, Andy, look, I much prefer that background dark with the light tiger. Well, on the top of the layer, we've got the background that's dark, and on the bottom, we've got the light tiger. So all I can do is, from the top, I can pick an eraser, and if I quickly erase through, then you'll see that the light tiger will come along, and you can see how roughly I'm doing it. And he says trying to make the brush smaller by not knocking the microphone. There you go. I'm going to go in the ears, and I'm going to quickly... You can see how much care I'm taking not to go around the edges, because I've got a very, very nice brush. This is the brush I've got. You can see it's one of these lovely fuzzy ones, and that means that the edges are all fuzzed out. There's no hard lines. There's no straight lines in anything I do. And that means anyone who's looking to catch you out and say, you cheat, you did some manipulation, they can't see what you did. And this is not manipulation. Anyway, this is retouching. And you can see I'm just going around the edge of the tiger, and that's about it. Made a mistake there, so we'll just undo that last one I did. A bit too close to the edge. There you go. So you can see, yeah, before and after. So I just missed a bit there. I mean, I could click this one off and it'll show the bits I've been round. So you could just go around there and a bit round there. And you can see that I'm actually inside the edges. So that's why you're not going to see what I ever do. And no, it doesn't matter. And yes, it's allowed. And everything else you're going to ask, because I don't care what they say. It's about the image. At the end of the day, it's what we want to produce. So, yep, so there you go. I can't be bothered with all this like masking where you select the edges and all that rubbish. It's just for people that are not like me. So there you go. So that makes the tiger stand up beautifully from the background. Collapse the layer. Are we done? What do you think? I can't hear you. Say I can't hear you. Okay, well, what we could do is add a bit of a vignette around the outside. So let's get a brush and make it quite low, like 9%. That's too big a brush, she says. So try and make the brush smaller with the square brackets key. And I'm just going to go around the edge like that. Just see that's adding a bit of a vignette. Yeah, there and up there. And maybe that area is a bit too bright, so I've toned it down up there with a bit of dodging and burning. That was too much, that one. Let's go back one. There you go. So that's quite a nice thing I've just done there. And you can see that's called dodging and burning. And it's what Ansel Adams was fantastic at. It's what he used to do all the time. There we are. Are we finished? Yes, we are. So what I've got to do is make it 8 bits a channel and save it in my Tiger directory, which is there, which is full of other lovely Tiger directories. There's another one already there, but I'm going to replace it too. Right I am, because it's fantastic. So I'm going to replace it. And there it is, because it's one I've done earlier. Now, what I would do very quickly, I've got an action set up for the web as well. So I would get a web image to go. You can see there, this image is 1024. It's been sharpened slightly. And it's got my copyright. And I make my copyright quite bold, to be honest. But what you could do as well, you could make that copyright in the corner there, which is good. But often what I'm doing these days, because I'm quite sneaky, is making a double copyright. And I'll put that on there. And I will now reduce the size to something smaller. I'll now reduce the opacity so you can't see it much. And I'll put it somewhere obvious like there. And that means when you zoom into it, oh, it's a name on there, look. And that's quite hard to get rid of. You know, you could bring it up a little bit. There you go. Bring up the name a little bit, or you could just think, oh, do you know what, that shows a little bit too much. I'll just knock it back, layer it. That's all done. Flatten it, and then finally save it. And I'll save it into my watermark directory as a JPEG. And just in case I don't think it's a high-res one, I'll put low-res on there, just to make it easier. And that will save it as a JPEG in my directory as an 11. And that's it. We're all done. I hope you enjoyed that. Just a very quick Photoshop run through. Well, very long Photoshop run through, and hopefully made you smile throughout. More later. See you later. And remember, if you want to come on Tiger Tours, let me know, because they're booking quick. All right. Bye for now. Bye.